Okay.
So just so the public and the applicants know, we had a little bit of a technical glitch and we're working through it. But we have not started the meeting officially yet, so we will in a minute.
Yeah, Peggy,
Yes.
is it working? Oh, good, you can hear. Good.
Yes.
Okay. Uh-oh.
I think she needs to mute, doesn't she?
Peggy needs to mute herself unless she wants to speak.
Mute on the computer. Yeah, mute the computer, Peggy.
Can you mute me on that end?
Yeah, but then I think you might have to unmute. So there, I muted you. Okay. Okay, Jim,
Have we started the recording?
we have.
Okay. So I'd like to call the meeting to order. This is the December 7th meeting of the Milford Planning and Zoning Board. If we could please do the Pledge of Allegiance and have a moment of silence. I pledge allegiance
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the
United
United States of America,
to the
and to the
republic
republic
for which
for
it
which it
stands,
stands,
one
one nation,
nation,
under
under
God,
God,
Indivisible, justice.
liberty and justice for all.
for all.
Okay, thank you. Meg, if you would please call the roll.
Sure. Mr. Sadi and Mr. Zaharides have advised that they will not attend. Ms. Austin,
Present.
Mr. Castagnoli,
Here,
Mr. Cater,
Present.
Mr. Collegian,
Present.
Ms. Kearney. Yes, she's here. Sorry, I didn't mean to put you through that thing. Sorry. Is Mr. Moore, has he joined us?
He has not, I don't believe.
Okay, Mr. Mortimer
Present.
and Chairman Quish.
I am here.
Thank you.
Okay, we have a quorum. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. Well, that's a good thing. The first order of business is the 5-year capital improvement plan. I did see Justin in the audience. Is he going to speak on behalf of the mayor's office?
I am Chairman Quish.
Thank you.
Chairman Quish, members of the board, good evening. My name is Justin Rosen. I'm a member of the mayor's team. I am here this evening, as I am most years, to present the mayor's 5-year capital improvement plan. This contains a series of proposed projects and proposals. It does have a hefty price tag, but don't be concerned. This does not obligate the city to any level of funding or commit to any of these projects. This is merely a planning document that we use to outline areas we'd like to improve in our infrastructure, our schools, our wastewater system, our buildings, our vehicle fleet. With all of the new revenue coming in through Recovery Act funds, infrastructure bills, Build Back Better plans, all of the money coming into the state and federal government, it's all the more reason to have a comprehensive capital improvement plan that outlines any and all projects that we may want to utilize that funding for. This merely helps move the process along as we apply for any level of grant funding for these projects. Again, this is purely a planning document, but as we are seeing a significant boost in federal and state grants, it's quite important to have this. We come here every year with this proposal. This one is 2021 through 2026, and pending this board's approval, it'll go on to the Board of Aldermen for their consideration at their January meeting. Again, it's quite a comprehensive plan. I think it's 146 pages. I appreciate the time you took to let me speak today, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Justin. Are there any questions from the board? Okay, seeing none, why, I would hear a motion.
I will.
Thanks, Jim.
I move to approve the referral by the city of Milford pursuant to CGS Section 8-24 for the 5-year capital improvement plan for 2021 through 2026.
Great, we have
Second.
a motion, we have a second. Any discussion on the motion?
I'm sorry, who is the second?
Mr. Castagnoli.
Thank you.
I would say, if you would please, Meg, call the roll.
Miss Austin,
With the motion.
Mr. Castagnoli,
Yes.
Mr. Cater,
With the motion,
Mr. Collegian,
with the motion,
Ms. Kearney, with the motion, Mr. Mortimer,
with the motion.
and Chairman Quish.
With the motion.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Justin. Second order of business is 134th Street, Bailey Lane, Blueberry Reserve, Zone 12-5, request by Brian Wilson, RGSF Builders for partial bond release for work associated with the subdivision known as Billberry Reserve in accordance with the memo from Chris Saley, Public Works Director, to David Solkis, City Planner. David, if you would just refresh us, how much of the bond are we leaving in place? It's reduced, it's not a complete release.
Correct. And the number is, give me 2 seconds, I wrote it down. Okay. We are releasing $43,520. $2,200 is being retained for trees that will be planted. And then the city will be getting another $3,000 bond, a new bond for some other outstanding work. So just to remind the board, this was actually a subdivision done perhaps 12 years ago, 15 years ago, and it's just being closed out now. And per our subdivision regulations, when it reaches the point where bond funds can be released, the applicant makes a formal request, and then the director of public works, usually in consultation with the city engineer, make a determination as to whether or not the items that made up the bond have been taken care of. So this is, an administrative function of the board at this point.
Great.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, I'd hear a motion.
I'll do it again.
Okay, thank you.
I move to approve the request of Brian Wilson, RGSF Builders for partial bond release for work associated with the subdivision known as Billberry Reserve in accordance with the memo from Christopher Saley, Public Works Director, to David Solkis, City Planner, dated November 3rd, 2021.
We have a motion. We have Joe Castagnoli making a second. I think we can just do a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, motion carries. Thank you. The next order of business is public hearing, closed by January 7th, 2022, vote by February 11th. Number 4, Oxford Road, Zone LI, petition of Fernando Pastor for a special exception to allow live-work units at map 102, block 702, parcels 41, 43, 47, and 4D8, of which David Barnes is the owner. The applicant has the floor.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman. It's Kevin Kersaden for the applicant. My office is at 3 Lafayette Street in Milford. I understand the board had a initial presentation or discussion at the last meeting, and I wanted to potentially highlight or clarify any outstanding questions or issues for the board. But if the chairman, I understand the time is valuable and it's a busy night. If I can just have a few minutes to try to hit home a few points about what the application is and what the board is actually considering tonight. So for example, what's in front of the board is a special exception application. It's not a site plan application. So although the applicant has presented fairly substantial and robust site plans that have been reviewed by the city engineer and inland wetlands, what really the focus of the board's decision is for this application is the use. And what's important about this special exception, I guess, mechanism or tool that exists in your regulations is that it only, if the board saw fit to approve this application or any special exception application, it only applies to that property and that use. It's not something that sets a precedent that would spread throughout the zone or throughout other properties, other units or properties. In this case, it's a office condominium association. So this exact application is for live work units in 2 out of the 5 buildings at this property address, and for a total of 14 units. The applicant or the owner actually owns about, I'd probably say 92 to 95% of the units on the site. My understanding is the original concept was to come into the board with an application for full approval of all units to be converted to live work units if that was what the applicant decided to do with it. Based on discussions, they've had discussions with Mr. Griffith and David Sulkus over several months. And based on those discussions, they pared down the original application to just these 14 units. So what's in front of the board, and we can get into a little bit more about what live work is if the board has questions. But what's specifically in front of the board tonight is 2 buildings, 2 out of the 5 buildings that would, if the board approved this application, would approve, I believe, 14 units total, 4 units in building C and 10 in building D. I don't know if Mr. Sulkus, if you could pull up the site plan. Like I said, it's really about the use. You've seen the plans already, so the site plan and the architecturals are not, the floor plans are not critical right now, in my opinion. So when a board, and I'll be as quick as possible. When a board's considering something like this, the board's acting in an administrative capacity and or the legislative capacity, and they, it's really at your discretion whether you want to approve something like this. There's not a hard and fast standard that we can point to. There is a special exception regulation, obviously, that lays out some things that you consider, which is the nature of the use, the scope of the use, the harmony of the use with the neighborhood. And other things that the board can consider is that, for example, when I first started talking to the applicant about this, it took me a little bit of time to wrap my head around it. So I'm sure the board may also have some questions or need some time to digest it, which is why I think the board tabled it from last month. But for example, this, I look at that. And so after I had time to look at it, frankly, and think about it, I look at this as an opportunity for the board to entertain or allow this type of use in the LI zone without going to a full zone text amendment or changing your regulations and allowing it in the LI zone citywide. So I look at this as a unique opportunity for the board to approve this use at this location in these 2 buildings, these 14 units that would be converted if the board approved it. And by the way, in speaking with the applicant, the approval or the conversion, post-approval, the conversion would not happen instantaneously. It would be phased in over a period of time because there's current tenants in some of these units, and they have leases that extend out a number of years. So it wouldn't be a hard and fast, immediate change in use. But so I think that's a benefit to the board because without doing substantial investigation or planning, you have the opportunity to approve this type of use, see if how it works, how it could work better, other conditions and restrictions that may apply if you decided to approve this type of use in the future. And the applicant, in speaking with them, the reason for this proposal is the change in how people have approached work, life, play, how they've approached whether they want to do a commute or not do a commute, what they value as far as their life-work balance or live-work balance. So, so the applicant strongly believes that this is a wave or a path or in the future to for land use. And as part of a specific question, we did submit some other towns, municipalities in Connecticut that have actually changed their regulations to allow this type of use. Once again, that's not what we're asking the board to do tonight. And also I wanted to point out that it's not I also looked at this from if I was going to sit on the board, and why would I have a problem with this application? And so one of the things that came up is if you open this up to a living use or a residential type use, even though this is not pure residential proposed, would you be susceptible to, would the LI zone then become susceptible to an 8-30G application if a moratorium were ever to be lifted? I did some research on that, and I discovered a case. It was actually in Orange from a couple of years ago. Attorney Lynch, I believe, was on that case, and he's on the call tonight. But basically, because this is actually being proposed as a mixed use, as live work, it's not 100% residential. The industrial exemption would still apply in the future. So I don't. If the board did have a concern, I don't think that the board, because it being mixed use once again, as opposed to purely residential, I don't think that would be a concern. So, that's one of the approaches I took to looking at this, to try to explain why we think the board should take this opportunity and approve it tonight. As the commission knows, and everyone listening tonight, there's been a big change in the past year and a half, 2 years, how people do business in people's lives, what they think is important. Once again, I think that the opportunity to do this in this limited circumstance doesn't make the rest of this property, and it doesn't make the rest of the zone susceptible to a what they would call in the military a mission creep, or a slippery slope of allowing all residential. This would be, the board could place very strict specific conditions on an approval for this type of use in this location. So that's something else, another tool the board has. One of the other things that you look at when you're deciding this, and once again, although it's not a zone text amendment, you can look to the plan of conservation and development and see if that's informative for a decision like this, and if this is something that the board or the board's predecessors have thought about or considered. And this use, it's not non-compliant with the plan of conservation and development. And actually, with respect to the growth and management principle number 2 on page 139 of the plan of conservation and development, this is in line with that, because those 2 points, 2 of those points bring out enhanced housing mobility and choice across income levels and promote mixed income developments. And then support adaptive reuse of existing structures for use as housing, which this in part would be, once again, not straight housing, but live work. So there's that component to it. So one of the other comments in the plan of conservation and development was that that preserve the remaining limited industrial that you have. So I think it's obviously it's the board's decision. Would this type of use help to preserve the limited industrial that you have by allowing it to survive versus units going vacant because people aren't, renting office space, or they don't need the separate office space like they used to, or they're deciding to work from home. The other aspect of this is when you look at it from a reverse perspective or a different angle is, well, why can't you do this in a residential zone? Milford has regulations that allow home occupation in a residential zone, but it's very limited it's limited to 25% of the first floor, 50% of the basement space. And you can only have one non-resident or non-family employee working there. So what's being proposed, or the concept that's being proposed, it would not be allowed in the in any residential zone. You also have to consider the practicalities of trucking or commercial pickup and drop off, and those would not be appropriate in a residential zone. So I tried to look at the video from last month. I could not pull it up on NGAT YouTube, or I couldn't find it to see exactly what was said. I did review the minutes. I think what's proposing is something that the board has to seriously consider now, or also in the future, about how people are actually going to function and live and work in their lives. Pending that, like I said, I know the board's seen the pictures. I guess we could scroll through there if you so choose, or had some specific questions about that. We do have the design professionals, the engineer and architect on the call as well. But I just really wanted to focus on why we're here, some things that the board may consider when considering whether to approve a project or an application like this. We would have to come back in for a site plan. So a lot of specific site plan conditions or use conditions could be applied at that point in time. But pending your questions, that's essentially what I wanted to say tonight. So thank you for your time.
Great, thank you. I do have a question. You mentioned that there are some other communities here in Connecticut that have addressed light industrial and mixed use. Can you tell us a little bit about your research and what you found out, what communities and what they did?
It's muted. Kevin, you're muted.
Thanks. Sorry about that. So New Haven, Norwalk, what the specific regulations I submitted to the board this week that is part of the package is all Connecticut based. I know that there's some other, South Windsor, Enfield. Some of the regulations specifically referenced live work, very similar. If the board were to approve this use, what the practical outcome would be is very similar to what those regulations allow, where, the ratio of, half the unit or half of the structure having to be, commercial or office, and the other half having to be residential. So I mean, my client may have insight on things that have actually been built in those cities as an example. But the research, and then some other, I think it was Norwalk didn't specifically mention live work, but it was the same, the language is the same general concept of what we're asking the board to do. I mean, I'm not obviously, I'm not on the board. I've been doing this for a while. I think it's a good opportunity for the board to see if something like this could be successful without opening up, the rest of the municipality to it.
Great. Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the board?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Yep. Go.
I'd like to ask Attorney Kersaden if any of the proposed conditions have been submitted or dealt with.
Yes, sir. If you're referring to the engineer and the initial inland wetlands reports and comments, yes, the plans have been revised to include additional plan sheets. I think it's D1 and it's like the 4th and 5th page of the last sheets that we provided. But yeah, there you go. They have responded to those comments, and the project engineer who's on the call also responded to inland wetlands. I've spoken with Mr. Pedlewski and Mrs. Palumbo about that, and Mr. Pedlewski provided a revised comment, and then he provided a further revised comment that when we submit a site plan, he'll take another look at it and submit his official comments. And Mrs. Palumbo was of the same mindset. So they were complied with as best we can right now.
Okay, and you provided the floor plans for each unit,
Yes,
okay?
yeah,
The parking table with the bedroom count,
that, I'd have to defer, I'd defer to the project design team, whether that was done or not. But that would be, once again, that could be done as part of the site plan application. I believe the number of parking spaces was 2 per unit. If it hadn't been completely revised, we could definitely make that correction. But, I think what the board would not be approving these specific plans this evening because they'd have to go through a site plan review process if the board
Okay.
so choose.
because if you're talking 4 cars per office unit, are there enough for 4 cars for each unit?
I defer to the project engineer to.
Yeah, hello, this is Fernando Pastor. We are removing some of the parking spaces, but there's plenty of parking spaces. You see on the back of each building, there's probably 150 cars here. So you see all that area there, all that is just all vacant. There's areas all around the building, there's plenty of parking spaces. So we're counting 4 cars per unit.
So you do have 4 cars per unit.
And there's more than that, but
There's more than that.
There's more,
Okay.
there's more spaces available than that.
right. Mhm.
Okay, all right. And so in the parking table, we'll see that.
Yes. Mhm.
Yes.
Well, I just want to make sure that, if each unit has one visitor, that there's enough for that unit, 2 people live in the unit, 2 cars, and then another visitor, that's 3. Okay, I just want to make sure there's enough parking to house for all those cars.
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
there is parking. There is enough parking for at least 4.
Okay, and you'll submit the parking table to show that.
Yes. Mhm.
Yes.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Great. Any other questions or comments from the board?
Can I ask a question, Jim?
Sure.
You brought up those 4 towns or cities in Connecticut that have tried this. What was the feedback? I don't remember you saying that. What did they feel? How it's working out pretty good for the cities? Do they encourage it, or what's their take on it?
So, Mr. Cater, yeah, thank you. It's those municipalities have regulations that they've amended or written to allow this use. So as far as that use actually being implemented, I would have to defer to my client, the applicant, to perhaps comment on that if they know.
Yeah. So we listed New Haven as the first one because that's the most aggressive in a way that they want to have this use in the light industrial zone where there's warehouses, empty warehouses or mills or buildings that are empty, basically, are vacant. So they want to promote the live work, and we send copies of all of these regulations there. So
Yeah, no, I don't
I
mean
did
to
some
interrupt.
research. There's 192 towns and 21 cities in Connecticut. So I did some research. I found those, and I'm sure there's more, but I had to read all the ordinance until I found the precedent of the residential
Yeah.
use
Hey.
or live work use in a light industrial zone.
Hey, Fernando, this is Kevin. I appreciate that. I think what the gentleman is asking is how have those projects been successful, and if we know what their experience has been. So I'm not sure if the applicant has a comment on that. David, do you have any feedback on that?
He said he worked on a few in New Haven, so I mean, they keep asking for that to happen. So that's why we keep thinking along those lines, where like this is something that's promising, looking forward.
And this was all before COVID, so especially after COVID, all this use of living and working on the same place is going to happen in the near future everywhere, I guess.
Excuse me, do we have actual addresses that we can look up of these places?
I don't have anything now on my mind, but
I
we
can,
can provide that.
I can, Mr. Mortimer, I could submit that to staff, through staff, for the board to be concluded as part of the record.
That sounds good. That would be interesting.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board? One thought I had is, can you get about the floor plans? Put that drawing up. Who's got the screen?
I think it's a little further down, Dave. Yeah.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Okay, can you just like pick one and enlarge it for a second?
Just to let you know, that's Jim Skonchik. That's his screen.
Oh, thank you, Jim. So we have, this is a first floor, correct? So this is, so this is showing us 4 separate units, 2 stories. My question is this: how does this function any different than just a residential unit in terms of the floor plan and the architecture?
Well, you see in the front of each of these units, there's a room where you enter the building. It's a vestibule, and then there's a big room that has the tables or the computers. That's the work section of the building, and then there's a screen and a sliding door that separate that from the rest of the building. On the back, you have, on the left side is the two-story building. The stair goes up. There's 2 bedrooms upstairs, and you have the living room and the kitchen on the private zone behind the sliding doors. The unit to the right is the 1-floor unit, and that has also the live work area at the front. And then you have the bedroom on the back and an office on the back. And the kitchens are back to back. The bathrooms are on the existing locations now. And that there's also an exterior patio at the back, so they can have access to the back of the building.
Right. So again, the concept of live work is good. I think that the times are calling out for open-mindedness and seeing how we can accommodate people that don't want to commute. But at one point, this really more like a home office. It's not being built as a mixed use where you would have a retail. You're not selling shirts. You're not serving coffee. It really looks like a home office. And so I'm not saying that's necessarily a bad thing. I'm just saying that is what is being proposed here. This is taking a light industrial function and creating someone to have a home office. I mean, in a home office, you could have a meeting. You could have an attorney doing closings. You could have an architect going over plans. But so, and I'm not saying it's necessarily a bad thing. I think I'm just thinking about it in those terms, that it's.
But let me clarify something. This unit is the 2 units in the current unit is those 2 units together. So basically, there's a lot more room of empty space. Now we're dividing it in two and making 2 units out of the 1 unit.
Right. So this is, this was 1 unit. Do we have an existing floor plan we could take a peek at or
Yeah,
not?
there are more plans. Jim, if you can move the back, there's an existing drawing showing. No, go to the other side, like the opposite side. No, up. Yeah.
All right, I'll-
The opposite way, Jim.
it's a long plan of documents, right? This is
He
not
had
separate.
to go down below.
You want to go down?
Yeah, he had to go
There,
there.
there.
So that's existing condition.
Okay, so this is 1 unit that now becomes 2.
Correct.
Right, so you see all this office space, this unit is called office, and there's a vestibule, 2 bathrooms, and there's a kitchenette in some of them they don't have the kitchenette, and everything else is office space. Now, you keep on going down,
One second. I think what you're asking is the actual use, like who's gonna actually move in and use the space. So the way we envisioned it wasn't only that it's gonna be a design for a meeting space, it could become a yoga studio, it could become a little storefront. That's the concept, that it has this aluminum glass, big glass door that has the front end, and then the back end is the living space. So this concept where someone can make a small shop, they want to have an Amazon store, they want to have trucks, shipments coming and going. The design space is there. It's very hard for us to define where the person's computer is
No,
going
I
to be.
understand that. And that is a very good point. We're looking at, though, in that 2 unit, you're taking what the existing was 1,400 square feet, or what's the size of the old?
About 1,600 square feet.
About 1,600 square feet. So you're looking at 1,600 square feet of office, and you're replacing it with 652 square feet of the other use, the mixed use, live, work.
Right.
So it's a
more like
fairly
1,000 square feet for.
fairly substantial change.
Right. The concept, the way I look at it is that if somebody lives in Milford and they have a small business and they want to downsize, so they could either work from home and then it becomes a disruption to all their neighbors, or they can move into such a place where they can have a yoga studio, dog babysitting service, and many small businesses that we currently have. They're currently not using some of the space. So we're like, hey, so why don't you live in some of it and then operate the rest of the business that you're currently using in this space versus rent 2 spaces, 1 to live in, 1 to work out of. It's an amazing opportunity for someone that's looking to downsize, retire, slow their business down. Electrical, someone's got electrical company, it's a 1-man show, there's plenty of them. They need a space to store, they want to have supplies coming and going. There's so many different businesses that could be using this space. We even
So
had an idea.
where's the
Nail
storage?
salons.
Yeah, so to follow up on that, where would the storage be? Are there basements for storage?
No, in this front area, this will be their shop. They're basically their storage shop.
Right.
Or like a nail salon, someone can make a nail salon there. I mean, I don't know all the logistics of the.
If you scroll up again, Jim, there's some drawings that show that there are different uses.
In the pictures?
No, there. If you go to the right, you see there's one that is a gym, for instance, and the last unit to the right.
Yeah, this one.
No, on building D
This thing
is where all the pictures are. Yeah, there. You see that has the gym on the back of the unit and the living space on the front. So all this is flexible space. They can use it wherever they fit, however they fit.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you. Any other questions or comments from the board?
I think it's a great idea. I'm wondering how you would attract those particular types of businesses, whatever they may be, or enforce the usage at all. So just.
Yeah,
know.
I mean, I think that's a good point. I mean, at one point, you call it live use, but if they don't have a business, they could just have their apartment.
Yeah,
So,
I don't even know if that would be a bad
and I
thing.
don't know
or
that
not.
that's
I'm just
necessarily a bad
curious.
thing either. I just,
They
I think it's coming close to abandoning the light industrial use. Maybe not fully, but kind of. And I do understand that it could be very valuable for many citizens or future citizens of Milford, and that's necessarily not a bad thing either. So I'm just thinking about it, and you know,
I just want to
the,
say we had a lot of interest. People keep reaching out to us and they're basically
That's good.
saying like, we're looking to downsize. This is how we came up with the idea. There's a studio there that she told us that, I'm sure you guys are familiar with Rose Studio. She told us, and when she moved in, she thought that she could redesign the space and then basically she'll sleep there at night and save. And then she's like, oh, when they told her you're not allowed to live there, you can't sleep there. She was like, oh, you know. So she's like, there's a lot of people that are looking for this type of use in space. How to police it, that I'm not 100% sure. I think that's why we put in this screen wall that basically if somebody does come and say, look, let's remove this wall because we want an open concept, we want to live here, they would need a permit to do that. So that's the first line of defense.
yeah, the building permits, not zoning, but anyway, that's fine. I mean, I understand what you're trying to do, and I don't necessarily think it's bad or anything. I think it's our job to, you know, troubleshoot it a little bit, see where we could be doing a detriment rather than doing a good. So I'm not saying this is a detriment. I just want to explore that a little bit as a group and see if you know, I think the balance of quote unquote the mixed use is a little bit off, but that could be just because that's the nature of the change in our economics of you know, the economics of the commerce that's going on today.
I just want to point out that originally we thought we could do the whole space, but then after bringing this forward through the city channels, we figured, look, this is a big undertaking and a new concept, so let's shoot for something much smaller, and that's why we.
So you mean in terms of doing all the buildings, all the units?
Correct. So we're just trying this, so we figured let's try it on a small scale. We'll do a couple, we'll see how it plays out.
Yeah, I mean, and then obviously if it's a special exception, you could come and do another building at another time. There's nothing to preclude that. And you know, I don't know that it's not something that we should be looking at the entire zone to make a maybe more global change like New Haven did. But anyway, just some thoughts. Also, one thought anyway. So yeah, that's good. I'd like to open it up to the board to share their opinions if they'd like to. Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I too like the idea. Well, I find it interesting, you know, and again, I hope they don't take it wrong that when we ask questions, it's just, you know, trying to see if there's possibly something we're not thinking of. I mean, it is a little different than a city of like New Haven. This is not quite in the suburbs, but sort of, you know, so the impact's a little bit different than being in New Haven and more city kind of environment. So, but I like the idea. I like they're going small. You know, if it doesn't work out, you know, we don't have to prove anything going forward, you know. So, but that's it. I just want to say I like it, find it interesting.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, this is a public hearing. I would open it up to the public. If you want to speak to the issue, please state your name and address for the board. Keep your comments to about 3 minutes.
Okay, I'm scanning the audience and I see no one raising their hand either electronically or waving. We'll accept a wave. And I see no waves. Going once, going twice. I see no one asking to speak, Mr. Chair.
Okay, so seeing no comments, Kevin, would you like to close?
Mr. Chairman, yeah, no, I appreciate the discussion. I think it is an important discussion and considerations, you know, some serious considerations for the board for this application and going forward. I did want to comment just briefly. There are, you know, this is an association, so the documents could be changed as part of enforcement. The question is, how do you prevent it from becoming residential? 100% residential. There could be restrictions in place, and I understand those all have enforcement components to it, but that's how the city enforces the rest of the zoning regulations. That's one aspect to it, but I appreciate the consideration, and I think it's, I'm glad that there's a lot of comments and interest in it. Hopefully it leads to a good discussion. So thank you.
Oh, Mr. Chairman.
Yep, Joe.
So Kevin, the association will police the parking, and they'll also, I guess, monitor the compatibility of the businesses that are going in there.
Well, yes, it would have to, I mean, and this is the board it's a good spot for this as well, because you all also have the association that could put in rules and bylaws in effect to address a lot of these concerns on top of the municipal enforcement.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Does anybody see any reason why we shouldn't take a vote tonight? Seeing none,
Mr. Quish, could I ask a question?
yes, please.
I'd like to ask Mr. Sulkus. A simple majority is required to pass this,
Correct.
and a simple majority of the people that are voting tonight, or of the board.
Of people here tonight.
Actually,
Thank you.
Okay, any further questions? Seeing none, I'd hear a motion.
Chairman, I'll
Yep.
move to approve the petition of David Marisal and Fernando Pastor for a special exception to allow live-work units at map 102, block 702, parcels 4D1, 4D3, 4D7, and 4D8, all of which Marsh Hill Condominiums is the owner, with the following proposed conditions. 1 through 8 as listed, I guess, on our motion sheet. Do I have to, Dave, do I have to read the 1 through 8?
Yeah, you should.
Okay.
Thank you.
First condition, the applicant shall present a full property survey as specified in section 7.1.2. The applicant, number 2, shall submit a landscape plan in compliance with section 7.1.2.15 and section 5.14. 3, the applicant shall provide floor plans for each unit. 4, the applicant shall clarify the traffic pattern and pavement markings behind buildings C and D per section 5.1.10.4. 5, the applicant shall provide a parking table with bedroom count. 6, an updated site plan shall be provided showing the details for what will be constructed and the materials, planters, etc. that are proposed. 7, the applicant will submit plans for the restoration of the drainage basin to the satisfaction of the Inlands Wetlands Officer. And 8, the applicant shall make a complete site plan application for board review.
I will second.
We have a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, Meg, would you call the roll?
Miss Austin,
With the motion.
Mr. Castagnoli,
Yes.
Mr. Cater,
With the motion,
Mr. Collegian,
With the motion,
Ms. Kearney is with the motion. Mr. Mortimer,
With the motion.
Chairman Quish,
I'm also with the motion.
thank you.
Thank you and good luck with your project.
thank you.
Next order of business is 0 Quarry Road. Zone R18, petition of Jeff Adelino for re-subdivision of property at map 101, block 807, parcel 9R, of which Louis Fox is the owner. Applicant has the floor.
Good evening, Jeff Adelino, 136 Research Drive, Milford, Connecticut. Proposing 3-lot subdivision. Currently, there is one parcel there, which is 1.96 acres. We've gotten our approval from wetlands. This evening, we received city engineer's comments. We are prepared to address those. Just looking for the board's opinion. Any kind of questions you have for me this evening? Pretty simple presentation, pretty simple what I'm looking to do. I think Mr. Quish left.
You bored him.
I know. I thought I kept it simple. I guess we'll wait for him to come back.
He's here.
I'm here.
Oh, yes, okay. Okay,
Excuse me, I'm sorry about that.
no problem.
David, give us an overview, please.
Sure. The applicant is proposing a 3-lot zoning compliant re-subdivision. The applicant will need to provide an appraisal to determine an open space payment in accordance with section 3.10.1 of the subdivision regulations, which can be made a condition of approval.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, this is a public hearing. Is there any member of the public who would like to speak to this issue?
Mr. Chair, I am scanning the crowd. And there's one person who's joining us now, but I don't know if they want to speak or not. But right now, no one is raising their hand electronically and no one is waving at us. So going once.
Well, the person that just came in, just to let them know, we are in public hearing on 0 Quarry Road. If they did want to speak to that issue, they are welcome.
I did.
Oh, Peggy does.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
The gentleman said that he just received some work from someone, and is that something we haven't seen yet?
It's supposed to be attached to your agenda. Somewhere along the line, I can confirm that with Sue.
Yeah, Jeff, are you talking about your approval from inland wetlands?
No, I'm talking about Greg's
report.
notes. Yeah, that we received that about 3:30 this afternoon.
Oh.
It should be attached to your agenda according to Sue.
Okay, hold on.
I don't remember seeing it, but maybe someone else did.
It would have been, if it was, Peg, if it was attached to the agenda, it would have been put into the links.
Okay.
So let me see.
Jeff, what is it?
It's
what's
the
substance of
engineer.
it?
It's the engineering report. He's looking at us to do. We have dry wells in the back part of the property. He wants us to do some perk tests to confirm that they can handle the runoff from the from stormwater. Basically, he wants a report from the soil scientist, which we've already submitted to Mary Rose, which I thought would have been submitted originally. He wants a location shown on the plan where our driveways are going to be, but I thought they showed those on the plan already. And I'm looking at the plan myself, and I do show a location for the driveways. And he's looking to do that. We have to monitor our sediment control, which is part of our wetlands approval to start with.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, I'm sharing my screen and hopefully you see the letter with the conditions from the city engineer.
Yep. Are these conditions attached to the? They are not attached to the motion.
They are not, because they came in.
Okay. Yeah. Not why, just that they're not. So
yeah.
So if somebody wants to make a motion, they might want to include whatever what's the date on this document?
The date on this document is today.
Okay. So if there's a motion, we should add compliance with the city engineer's December 7th memorandum.
Yep.
Okay. Is there anything in there to the applicant that you feel is not doable?
Oh, I think everything on there is doable. I don't think there's any issues. I don't care about that. Everything should have been already provided as far as soil scientists and all that stuff. But once again, we'll get it over to Greg so he has a copy of it all.
Okay. So the public hearing is still open at this point. It's still no interest from the public. Is that correct, David?
We will ask one more time. Is there anyone here who would like to speak on Zero Quarry Road? Going once? Going twice? No one is raising their hands either electronically or waving in the camera. So, Mr. Chair, there appears to be no one who is interested in speaking.
Great. I would then hear a motion. Well, public hearing is closed and I would hear a motion.
I'll take this one. I move to approve with the following modifications, the petition of Jeff Adelino for re-subdivision of property map 101, block 807, parcel 9R, of which Louis Fox is the owner. Proposed conditions being the applicant shall make a payment in lieu of providing open space in accordance with the provisions of subdivision regulation 3.10.1 and also compliance with the city engineer's memo of 12/7.
Great, thank you. We have Joe Casignoli seconding. Any further discussion? Meg, would you please call the roll?
Sure. Miss Austin,
With the motion.
Mr. Casignoli,
Yes.
Mr. Cater,
Motion.
Mr. Collegian,
With the motion,
Ms. Kearney,
With a motion?
Mr. Mortimer,
With the motion.
and Chairman Quish.
I'm also with the motion.
Thank you.
Motion carries. Good luck with your project.
Thank you very much for your time.
Next order of business, 37 Point Beach Drive, Zone R75, petition of Adam Vermont. Race Coastal Engineering for a special permit to repair a seawall at map 30, block 635, parcel 2, of which John Garces is the owner. The applicant has the floor.
Is there anyone here to represent this project? Mr. Chair, it doesn't appear that anyone is here.
Okay, seeing none, we'll table it.
Okay.
Next order of business is 85 Point Beach Drive, Zone R75, petition of Raymond Pear, West Cotton Mapes, for a special permit to repair a seawall at map 30, block 643, parcel 1, of which James Fairweather is the owner.
Evening, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, and staff. Raymond Pear, Vice President of Engineering at West Cotton Mapes, located at 142 Temple Street, New Haven. As mentioned, I am here on behalf of the owner, James Fairweather. He has a 41-foot long concrete seawall at the southern portion of his property that's been undermined. The footing has been undermined, and we pursued a solution and pursued a certificate of permission and achieved that from the state of Connecticut DEP. So we've got state approval to move forward to make the footing repair. Yes, there's the cover sheet. We prepared sections and plans and so forth. We also received a letter from Mary Rose for jurisdictional ruling and approval of the project as well. So I'm here before you for the special permit approval through the commission. That plan before you shows the basically a patio in the center of the photo, center of the plan rather. And then further toward the bottom of the sheet is Long Island Sound, and that's the wall right there. That's right, and there's the wall kind of right in the middle. The letter A, B, C represent cross-section locations. So I've got some cross-sectional views through that for another perspective. There they are. You can see the wall is about 12 feet in height. We're not touching the wall nor impacting the wall. The issue is, yes, beneath the footing. You see that little triangular wedge just between the footing and the beach? That little zone is undermined. And as you scan through some other cross-sections, you could see how that void space is even larger and larger. And that's the issue. So it is our approved through the state to infill that area with the concrete material. We're not building up, we're not building out. It's simply a repair to prevent the undermining. And we seek kindly seek your approval this evening, and I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Right, so is it just, you just dig it out a little bit and pump grout in, or?
Actually, yes, it's all a handwork, and there's a form put on the front of the footing, and then there'll be a port. The concrete will stay up gradient, like a pumper truck, down through a chute and through the port to underneath the footing. And once cured, the form is removed, and the little port that would have some residual is then cut off. So it's basically filling in the void space with a slurry of cementitious material.
Great, thank you. Okay, any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, this is a public hearing. We will open it up to the public if anyone would like to comment on it.
Okay. I'm looking, anyone, if they would like to speak on this, please either raise your hand electronically or wave into your camera. I see nobody doing either. So, Mr. Chair, I don't think anyone would like to speak on this.
Okay, so then we'll close the public hearing. Does anybody see any reason why we can't address this tonight? Seeing none, is there any further discussion from the board?
Yeah, can I just ask something?
Sure.
You know, I think it's great what they're doing. I'm just with you know, all the stuff with climate change and all that. Have they looked at, is this kind of more of a temporary thing? It's going to be revisited in 2 years, or are they thinking of something maybe a little bit more long term with what's going on with potential sea rise and whatever might potentially happen?
Well, this is intended to be a permanent fix. The issue is not with the rise in tide elevation. It's more just the wave action at the toe of the wall. So the added material will prevent that erosion. And it's not been tended to in many years, so now we've got this condition in front of us. So climate change, I don't think will have, the tidal raise won't have impact to what our work is being done. It should suffice.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing and we will entertain a motion.
I'll do it.
Okay,
Right. I move to approve the petition of Raymond Pierre Westcott and Mapes Inc. for a special permit to repair seawall at map 030, block 643, parcel 1, of which James Fairweather is the owner.
do we have a motion? Do we have a second?
I'll second.
Okay, we have a second. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, Meg, if you would please call the roll.
Ms. Austin. Ms.
With the
Austin.
motion.
Thank you. Mr. Cassignoli,
Yes.
Mr. Cater,
With the motion.
Mr. Collegian,
With the motion,
Ms. Kearney,
With the motion,
Mr. Mortimer,
With the motion.
Chairman Kush.
I'm also with the motion. Thank you. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Next order of business is 1698 Boston Post Road, Zone CDD 5, petition of Thomas Lynch Esquire for a major amendment to the special permit with site plan review for a proposed auto dealership at map 109, block 804, parcels 10 and 12B, of which 1698 Boston Post Road LLC is the owner.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Just for the record, my name is Thomas Lynch. I'm an attorney with the law firm Lynch, Trimbicki, and Boynton, and my office is located here in Milford at 63 Cherry Street. And I'm presenting this application to you tonight on behalf of my client, 1698 Boston Post Road LLC, and its principals, Ed and Joyce Fedor. Ed is on the call with us tonight, along with Ron Wasmer, who's worked with me basically for the last 2 years on this project. We first came to the board back in 2019 and received approval for similar use of the property, the establishment of a used car dealership facility and storage of cars that are used or sold by my clients at the facility that they have down the road at 1470 Post Road, the Milford Jeep, the Milford Auto Group, which has been in business here in Milford for nearly 70 years. Joyce's father started the dealership back in the 1950s, and it's a continuous family run business ever since. So in 2016, they purchased this property at 1698 Post Road. Those of us who've lived in Milford for years remember the Milford Inn and the El Torero restaurant located on this property. It was owned by the Skutnicki family, and Ed and Joyce bought the property in 2016. And as I started to say, in 2019, we appeared before the board. We received approval. David, if you, maybe it'd be good at this point to go to the site plan and go to the second page of the site plan, I believe. We received approval for development of the rear portion of the property for the used car dealership segment of my client's business and storage of vehicles. The front part of the property was going to be retained for future use. My client, David's got the cursor there so you can see where the building is proposed now for the 6 bays for servicing the vehicles, and then the sales office for the used car segment of my client's business. That's in the front portion of the property, and in 2019, that was going to be undeveloped, reserved for future use. The 2019 approval was for the a smaller structure to be built in the rear portion of the property and cars to be stored in that section. There were changes to market conditions. My clients were in discussion with a major restaurant retailer that decided not to pursue development of the front portion of the property. So now we've redesigned the plans and brought this proposal to you tonight. So basically, and Ron is going to go through the elements of the site plan, but basically it's to utilize the rear portion for storage of vehicles and the front portion for the construction of a 5,500 square foot building, which, as I said, would serve as the sales office for the used car portion of the dealership, and a small area of servicing that will be for the used cars or preparing the used cars once they're sold. David had noted in his staff review, and we've had a lot of discussion about this because after the approval in 2019, the residential neighbors to the westerly side of the property were complaining that the landscape buffer was not installed. My client has now endeavored to do that. So as we speak today, and I confirmed it with Ed this afternoon, the elements of the site plan shown and presented to you today are identical to the landscape portions of the site plan that was approved by the board in 2019. It's just that there was a period of time where the plantings didn't go in, neighbors had complained, and generated a zoning violation, which is currently being addressed. So I just wanted to make the point very clear in our presentation to you tonight that that landscape buffer is in, and the balance of the landscaping is shown on Ron's plan will be developed during the course of the construction and the development of the site. So that's basically it. I'm going to turn it over to Ron just to go through the elements of the site plan. All the city departments have reviewed this. It was approved by the police commission at last month's meeting. There's a memo from the fire marshal. Mary Rose Palumbo has issued a jurisdictional ruling that this does not have any, this development doesn't have any jurisdictional review necessary from her department. So that's noted in the file as well. And then the plans were reviewed by Greg Podolsky, the city engineer. He basically summarized his review that absent a hydrology report that he'd like to have Ron submit, he has no objection to these plans. So with that, I'll just turn it over to Ron and let him finish up going through the actual elements of the site plan. Thank you.
Good evening. For the record, Ronald Wasmer, professional engineer, land surveyor, an office at 158 Research Drive, Milford, Connecticut. I'd like to briefly walk you through the elements of the site plans. David, if we could bring those plans onto the screen.
Oh, you're not going to do it tonight? Okay.
Guess we can just start right at that same page, SP1.
SP.
Second page in.
That one?
We don't see it, David.
Oh, imagine it. How about that one?
That's it. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So the property is bounded to the east by the Boston Post Road. It's bounded to the south by the plaza that contains the Whole Foods grocery store. It's bounded to partially on the west by the continuation of the Whole Foods complex, and then a little bit further to the west is a residential neighborhood. And then lastly, to the north, we're bounded by the Costco Plaza. Well, I take that back. The Costco Plaza and the I believe it's the Goodwill Plaza there. So you'll see we have a proposed driveway entering from the Boston Post Road so this will be a car dealership. We have some display vehicles up close to the Post Road, and then customer parking within proximity of the building. The building will have some offices, a showroom, and a service area. And then the bulk of the property is parking for vehicles for sale and additional customer parking directly behind the building. We do meet the parking requirements, and we meet the various setback requirements. We can flip to the next page very briefly. This is a zoning matrix. You can review the various zoning requirements. They're tabulated on this page. Now we'll move to the landscaping plan, which is so we've proposed landscaping on the site in accordance with your standard site plan requirements and the landscaping requirements within your zoning regulation. And we'll call out particular attention to the proposed buffer area to the residential zone. It's based on 10 feet per every 50 cars, which required 65 feet. We have proposed a buffer to that residential zone of 70 feet. There's quite a few existing trees within that buffer. Additional trees were planted, I believe, in the summer of 2019. It could have been the summer of 2020. The bulk of the other landscaping features proposed on here have not been constructed at this point, and they will be constructed as part of this construction of this showroom and repair facility. We can go to the next are really the boilerplate engineering plans, but we have a grading and drainage plan. The site is relatively moderately sloped. It slopes from the residential areas down towards the Boston Post Road. We've proposed a significant amount of storm drainage. Currently, there is no storm drainage on the property. There was none for that hotel or the restaurant that was there. The next page, we have utility plans. We're going to be served by a public sewer, public water, again, underground electricity. There is overhead electricity on the site now. Most of it's been discontinued. We will be installing a new pole close to the street, and then all the electric and telephone and cable will run underground. The next plan is your illumination plan in accordance with your regulations. So we're proposing pole lights to illuminate the parking lot and around the building. This meets your regulations. The next page is a catalog cuts of the various light fixtures. The plan after that is an erosion control plan. Your site plan requirements require an erosion control plan. This is again a relatively gently sloping site. We don't anticipate any sedimentation or erosion control. We do indicate the standard features of the erosion control plan, anti-tracking pad to be constructed during construction, silt fence around the perimeter of the property. There's no significant grading that will be taking place, just the leveling out here and there, a foot or so of excavation or filling, and then grading to a smooth grade that it can be paved. The last sheet is the existing conditions, close to the last sheet, existing condition survey. So right now, the lot is basically vacant. And you can see some of the existing trees that are on the site in the area of the residential. So those have remained, as well as the additional buffer plantings that were planted in the summer of 2020. The last two pages, the next two pages, 3 pages are your typical standard details for catch basins, fencing, tree plantings. There's a conceptual sign to demonstrate that we meet the regulations. A detailed sign will be submitted. That's a separate permit. It's handled through the zoning office. There's 2 parcels, so there's a tax merger map. This will merge the 2 tax parcels, and this will be recorded in the land records prior to the construction of this project. And then the last page is architectural plans, building elevations, and floor plans of the showroom and the repair facility. So that's a quick walkthrough of the plans. I'm sure you're all familiar with the site. It's the Boston Post Road site. And I'm here to answer any questions that you may have.
Great, thank you. Attorney Lynch, anything you want to finish with?
No, I just was, and I'm sure David will bring it up as part of his staff review, but David wanted to bring your attention to the fact that under section 514.62 of the regulations, the board has the discretion to approve what we've proposed here, an alternate landscaping plan that, as it states in the regulations, that places the landscaping entirely in the perimeter of the parking area and either exceeds or equals the landscaping requirements in terms of area and number of plantings. So because of the neighbors, the residential neighbors involved, The majority of the plantings were directed into that quadrant of the property. There are plantings, as Ron showed you on the landscaping page, along the border with Costco, but the majority of the plantings go along that westerly boundary, and that's part of what we're asking for you tonight, is to recognize the terminology in that regulation, and it is discretionary to the board.
Great. Joseph,
The building that is not part of the parcel, that's the Goodwill building?
Yeah, that's not part of our property, Joe.
I know that, but that's the Goodwill store.
Yes.
Okay.
That's to the north.
Right, and on the other side is Costco, and on the other side is Whole Foods.
Yep.
And the neighbors are in back somewhere?
Yeah, that's the back end of the neighborhood off of Woodruff Road. Tumblebrook, I believe.
Okay.
Yep. So
Okay.
that backs up from side streets off the northerly side of the development where Woodruff Road goes up.
Okay, and so you're backing up to their backyards, and how many neighbors are there over there?
I think if we go to page 2 of our site plan, it shows. There you go. So as Ron mentioned, part of that property along that border is the Whole Foods Plaza.
Right.
So if you look to the far left of our page, there's 3 foundations showing houses there.
Right.
The Tomacheks, there's another residence north of theirs. Those are the 2 closest houses to our site.
Okay, all right. And what kind of zone is that? What kind of residential zone is that? Is that R18?
I believe it's R12.
12, okay.
That's my guess. I can look it up if you want.
R12-5.
Yeah, okay, there you go.
All right, thank you.
Good guess.
great. Any comments or questions from the board before we open up the public hearing?
Mr. Chair, can I read my staff?
Yes, you may do whatever you like.
Well, I'll just read the report. The applicant is proposing to construct a new automobile dealership consisting of a 6,000 square foot building consisting of 6 service bays, showroom, and offices on 167,405 square foot lot. 49 customer spaces are provided, as are 274 vehicle display spaces. Section 5.14.6, subsection 1 requires that 10% of the parking area, 149,966 square feet, be calculated towards landscaping. As an alternative, landscaping can be done on the perimeter in accordance with section 514.6.2. The applicant is using already required buffer areas, in effect double counting for compliance with section 514.6 subsection 2. The 70-foot buffer area required along the abutting residential neighbors is there per section 3.20.4.2 subsection 3, and is also being used to satisfy section 516.6.2. The board needs to determine if the application is compliant with section 516.6 subsection 2 by using the already required section 320.4.2 subsection 3 as shown on sheet GD1. The applicant also will need to remove and relocate the light poles found within the proposed buffer areas per the buffer definition, and the applicant needs to provide an updated drainage hydrology study per the city engineer's review. So the important takeaway here is whether or not they're actually providing you enough green space and buffer area per your regulations, since they're double counting what's there under different parts of the regulations.
So what's your what's your experience, David, with the interpretation of that? Is it in fact double dipping, or is it in fact?
In my opinion is it's double dipping because it's two different sections of the regulations. One section requires you to have the buffer. The other section, which is section 516, says, oh, you have to have 10% of your parking area be landscaped, or have something that's more than equal to or more than 10% in the surrounding areas. So they're not actually providing you that 10% that's required based on the parking area, because they're already counting the buffer area that's required under the general zone itself.
Okay.
Can I
I do
comment?
want to chime in here.
Can I
On our
comment?
landscaping plan, on page 4 of 14, the 10% is 14,967 square feet. So we're providing 32,612 square feet. Now, it's possible, I'm not going to dispute that we're counting that 70-foot buffer area, but it's also true that we're providing more than double of the 10%. Trying to do some quick math to see how much that landscape buffer, in really quick math, 70 feet wide by about 220 feet long, is about 15,000 square feet. So if we take the 32,612 minus the 15,400, that means we're providing about 17,212 square feet of landscaping around the perimeter of the property, primarily this 10-foot landscaped buffer that we have around the entire property. It's slightly wider in a few places.
So you're providing just along the edges, more than 10% of the area that would be required for the parking area, which is basically 150,000 square feet.
Yes.
Okay, and that's not counting the buffer area that's required by section 320.
So my guess is, and this was a while ago when we did this, that on page 4 of 14, where we say that we're providing 32,600 square feet of landscaping, that does include the 70-foot buffer. But if I subtract that 70-foot buffer out, in round figures, it looks like we're providing 17,000 square feet. And you'll see that there's a 10-foot, if not wider, along the entire perimeter. And you see in places it is wider just out of practicality of the design. And there's also a triangular area towards the back that increases. We didn't call it out as a buffer, but it's shown as existing landscape to remain. That increases that buffer actually more.
So in that figure that you're using of let's see, 32,612, you're saying that it's not including the buffer here. Or for this table, it may be including the buffer, but you would still have the required amount of at least 15,000 square feet. And then the question.
Yeah, in my quick math, yes, I believe that's correct.
Okay.
So the question that's big is this: is required buffer to be used in calculation with parking lot percentages? It either is or it isn't.
Well, if it is or if it's not, regardless, it seems that we're providing the 10% that's necessary.
But if you forgetting about the buffer at the that borders the residential property, you have the 10+ foot buffer around the rest of the site,
Yes.
Now, is
Within
that?
that buffer, we're proposing a significant number of street trees, the minimum that's
Yeah,
required.
no. My question is this: is it the case that we are tasked with counting that as buffer and green space? Or is it just buffer and that you need 15,000 feet of green space with your 300 plus parking spaces?
My understanding, the only quote unquote buffer is the buffer to the residential zone. The area around the perimeter of the parking lot and the property is a landscaped area, but it's not a landscaped buffer.
So David, that
They can ask for that per the regulations.
okay, so there is no required buffer to commercial space, only the residential space.
Correct.
Correct.
Okay, so then that's legitimately can be counted towards their green space or they're not, their calculation of what.
As long as they have 10% or more landscaping in these areas,
Yeah, that's fine.
excluding that, then they're good.
As far as I'm concerned, then that becomes part of the bond, right? So if somebody builds something and you go out and measure it, if it's not 10%, you don't release the bond. Then they got to plant some more grass.
Right.
That's fine. For me, anyway.
Okay. Remember, this is a public hearing.
Yep, I do remember that. And if there are any other comments or questions from the board before we go to the public hearing? Seeing none, we'll open up the public hearing. If anyone would like to speak to the issue, they can wave or electronically ask to speak.
Mr. Chair, I'm scanning the screens of all of the attendees, and I do not, I see a hand from Casey Utzler.
Casey, if you state your name and address for the record, and please keep your comments to around 3 minutes.
And she would have to unmute herself. Casey, you have to unmute me. Okay, good.
Hi, it's actually Casey's mom. We go back and forth between teams for school. My name is actually Lori Utzler. I live at 26 Sand Street in Milford. I'm just wondering, I'm wondering why it took so long and just now when this is coming before the board, why the neighbors buffer zone hasn't been done and shouldn't that be taken into consideration? It sounds like they've had 3 years to do it.
Understood. Yeah. Again, it's up to each member of the board to consider that individually. And I think that staff gave us an idea or provided advice to ask for a cash bond in the amount of $50,000 to make sure that they actually do the landscaping. Also, as one of the proposed conditions that we're going to consider is that no zoning permit will be issued for the improvements until a substantial part of that buffer is completed. So I think that staff has considered that and is addressing it.
And Mr. Chairman, if I can just respond, or do you want me to wait or?
You can, that's fine.
As we're sitting here, the landscape buffer for that neighborhood that was on the 2019 plans, that has been planted.
Just for the record, Mr. Chair, that approval also conditioned the final placement and satisfaction of that buffer with Mr. Tomasik, the neighbor, who was supposed to be consulted. And I have no indication from him that he's been satisfied as to the work that was done there. And to my knowledge, was not made or consulted with per the board's previous approval.
Well, again, neighbors have issues, and that's going to happen everywhere. We have $50,000 bond to make sure that the neighbor is protected. So I think that if we do approve it and we do put that as a condition, that's a substantial insurance policy to make sure that the construction is what they say it's to be. Personally, if I think. But it is a public hearing, so if there's anyone else that would like to speak, please state your name and address for the board.
I am scanning the screens, Mr. Chair, and I do not see anybody waving their arms or using their electronic hands. Going once, does anyone like to speak? Going twice? I don't see anyone raising their hand. Mr. Chair, it appears no one else would like to speak.
Okay, we will close the public hearing. Is there any questions or comments from the board? Seeing none, I'd hear a motion.
I'll do the motion. Jim, you want me to do it?
Sure.
Okay, I move to approve with the following modifications, the petition of Thomas Lynch Esquire for a major amendment to the special permit with site plan review for proposed auto dealership at map 109, block 804, parcels 10 and 12B, of which 1698 Boston Post Road LLC is the owner. There's 3 proposed conditions. 1, no zoning permit shall be issued for the improvements to the site until a substantial portion of the required landscaping has been satisfactorily planted. 2, provide an updated hydrology study to the satisfaction of the city engineer as referenced in his letter dated 11/4/21 to the city planner. 3, provide a landscape cash bond in the amount of $50,000 per 5.14.8 of the zoning regulations.
Great, thank you. We have a motion, a second.
I'll second.
Okay, motion, a second. Any discussion on the motion? David, you feel comfortable that $50,000 is enough of a bond?
It might be adequate. I mean, we had to choose a figure based on the site.
Yeah, I mean, I think that if they do 80% of what they're supposed to, the $50,000 to address the last 20% is a
Right.
substantial incentive.
Right.
Yeah, okay. So we have a motion and a second. No further discussion. Meg, would you please call the roll?
Ms. Austin,
With the motion.
Mr. Castagnoli,
Yes.
Mr. Cater,
Motion.
Mr. Collegian,
With the motion.
Ms. Kearney,
With the motion.
Mr. Mortimer,
With the motion.
and Chairman Quish.
I am also with the motion. Thank you. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We have no old business, no liaison reports, subcommittee reports. We have chosen one of the respondents to the RFP, but we don't know that the city's going to fund it. So we are in limbo on that at this point. But we will hopefully find out sooner rather than later if we can get the funding to hire the consultant.
Mr. Chairman, can I report on that, please?
Sure.
Just the status of the discussions are that Dave and I are to contact the desired consultant and essentially, as you and I discussed, reduce the scope of services so as to not deplete them, but and also reduce the value of the contract with them. But and I don't know where those numbers are going to fall right now, but I think that's our next step is to reach out to the consultant and see what we can do to take on some of the work ourselves, DPLU, and still keep their professional services intact. So that's
Great.
where we're at right now.
Thank you. Approval of the minutes. Do we have a motion? This is for 11/3/21.
I'll move to approve the minutes of
Okay.
11/3.
Second. We got that motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none. It is approved. Chair's report. This is an open discussion about whether or not to resume in-person meetings. So anyone who wants to speak, just shout out.
Mr. Chairman, I'd
Go
like to go
ahead.
back, I'd like to go back to in-person meetings.
Okay.
Agreed. Board of Aldermen are in person. I don't see why we should not be in person.
Well, I would love to see a hybrid option. I don't know if that's possible. I think we've decided it's not possible technically. But for instance, I won't be around for the rest of the year. And if we did have a hybrid, I'd be able to attend, which would be good for me. But yeah, if we could have hybrid, I would totally support it.
I understand. I wholeheartedly support hybrid. However, and this may sound like very direct, but we were all elected for 2 in-person meetings, and that's what's required. And I get people can't always attend, and I've missed a couple meetings, but we need to be back in person.
Yeah, I have no problem with in-person meetings. It's nice to have that option when somebody can't be here. You could still fulfill your duties, but it is what it is. So,
anybody else want to weigh in?
I just like to know, let's say that I'm in favor also. I think it's time to go back. And as far as participation goes, aside from the convenience aspect, when it's like, as far as the public goes, there's 10 of us. If we're down a man or 2 or a woman, that's fine. As far as the public goes, if they have something to say and they really need to say it, they'll get to a meeting. And we've seen a lot of participation from people that don't really have much of an interest in them or location wise, relative to some of the stuff we've done. They just plug their TV in and go on, which is fine. But I think this would sharpen it down a little bit, can keep the meetings, focused. So I'd like to go back.
Anybody else? Good.
I'm okay with going back in person, but like John, it would be nice if there was a hybrid for those cases when you can't make it. So, but I understand Nancy's point as well. So, it is what it is. I'll deal with it, but there may be a few meetings I have to miss.
And I understand that, but are the Board of Aldermen seeking a hybrid solution?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if we should base our decision on what they think. But
what I'm saying is we are also, much like the Board of Aldermen, much like the Board of Ed, we are elected officials. We signed on for in-person meetings. I understand COVID happened and I understand all of this, but if our meetings are held in person, I do feel it's our duty to be back in person in front of our constituents. That's how I feel.
Anybody else? See, again, I feel like the hybrid solution would be great. I am more concerned now about COVID than I was a month ago. A friend of mine just died 3 days ago with COVID. He was 62, I think, 63 maybe. And there's a new variant that is quite contagious. I think that when we are in the public arena, there's a requirement that everybody wear a mask. I think there's a problem. What happens if somebody comes in and says, I'm not wearing a mask? And they want to get up and they want to
Yeah.
speak. No, let me finish what I'm saying. No, I'm talking now. You'll have your time to talk when I'm done. I'm going to explain my feelings. And so I'm concerned about issues where people come in and won't wear a mask, and I don't know how we're going to deal with that. The requirement from the city of Milford is that if you're inside a city building, you have to wear a mask. Our board is different than the Board of Aldermen. We have applicants who come in with multiple people and they make presentations and they have to wear a mask. It's going to be a little bit more difficult to understand them. And I don't know their vaccination status. And that concerns me personally. So I am without a hybrid option. I'm personally against it. If we have a vote tonight and the majority says we'll go back, we'll go back. I have one vote. That's all I have, but I have a voice and I want to express my opinion. So I think that it's too early to go back. And I think that the comparison with the aldermen, I don't think they get as much public interaction as we do. And maybe we don't get that much. We had 5 public hearings tonight and we had 1 person speak. So not necessarily going to have everyone coming up, but when there's contentious issues, they do come up. So I personally think safety trumps at this point, and I think that we are doing our job, whether we're doing it via Zoom or in person. So I don't feel that we are not doing our duty to the people that elected us by reading and looking at these projects and thinking about them and doing our due diligence and then coming here and acting on it. So that's my 2 cents.
And I really disagree with that.
That's fine. That's good.
No, I respectfully disagree. I do feel we are missing a lot by not being in person. So that's my feeling.
Yeah.
And I feel we need to make a decision. We have 1 meeting left of this year and we move into the new year. Yeah, there's 1 meeting left.
Oh, the meeting there, this is the last meeting of the year.
This is the last meeting. So we have a new board coming on in January. And I'm sorry, but I do feel it's time to return in person.
Yeah, no, I agree. And I wish I felt more comfortable about it. I think there's another good point about the virtual meetings or a hybrid, if we can get the city to figure it out, is that there are people in the public who may have greater need to be concerned, elderly people, people with health issues that would like to contribute on a particular issue that will be precluded. So I think that this opens it up to more participation. Not that we've seen it, so I can't.
Well, I don't think we could speculate on what we've seen or what we haven't seen. It is what it is. We are a board that was elected to serve, and anybody else wants to chime in, I would love to hear what somebody else has to say on this.
Well, I think we're definitely serving. I don't know if being actually at City Hall in person is an integral part of this whole operation. Which I'm not, I'm totally cool with going back. I don't see where it's such an important aspect. And I do think the public would have more of an opportunity to participate virtually. It's easier. So there's going to be more of them at the meetings, I would think. So,
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chair,
I belong to another organization and we have hybrid meetings for the people who can't attend in person. And can we check into a hybrid meeting where the people who feel comfortable going into City Hall can do so, and the other people can do it virtually like we're doing it now? Can we check into that, Dave?
Yeah. Mr. Griffith, could you please address that?
Yeah, our discussions right now with the City Hall are that we have an idea as to what the technology would entail to put
Okay.
together a hybrid meeting. I believe it will require, to say nothing of the expense of the technology, it also would require additional labor, people attending the meetings. And so right now, the discussion is that the city is not going to be pursuing setting up hybrid meetings.
And Mr. Chair, just to give people a sense, because you may not get a sense when we're at these meetings, how many people actually attend. I will tell you that the public hearing we had for the Smith Funeral Home Project, that was our record breaker for people attending. We had, I think it was between 150 and 180 people that night. Various times, the number fluctuated, participated online for that meeting, just to give you a sense that, people do attend.
I'm not arguing that people attend online. I'm not arguing that. And we could sit here and we can count how many people sign on, how many people talked, how many people, address situations. Look, we've had, it's just, here it is. We are missing a lot. The meetings are not run as efficiently as they are when we're in person. It is time to go back. It is, and that's how I feel. And trust me, I wear a mask all day, every day. I have no problem with that. And it is what it is, but I just feel it is time to get back. Look, we're going back after the new year. Let's go back.
Well, it
Okay,
seems that the city is not going to pursue or, hybrid. If they're not going to pursue it because it's too expensive, I think that the decision's been made and it's out of our hands, if I'm not mistaken.
Well, yeah, so there goes, there's no hybrid potential. Phone in, right? I don't know. I mean, it's still legal with the executive order, but I don't think we would. I don't think you can do a Zoom with having half the people there, half the people not. But but anyway, so here we are. The discussion's happening. Everybody wants us. Anybody wants to speak more on it, we'll do that. If not, somebody make a motion and we'll vote on it, and the vote will be final. Until we vote again, if it changes, if get another variant or something. But
Let me just make a little bit of a point. I don't want to argue with anybody, but I don't really feel like I've done a lesser of a job since we're doing Zoom. And there's a part of me feels that we're more interactive. We seem to be talking more. And so I don't really see being Zoom or being in person really much difference. To me, I'm not quite sure, Nancy says we need to be back. I'm not sure what difference we'll be doing. What will we be doing more than we are now? What will we be doing better? I'm not understanding that.
The flow of the meetings, the efficiency of the meetings, the ability to be in front of the people that we are representing face to face, and not, I can't be on camera because I don't have great internet service. So if I go on camera, 9 times I'll get kicked out of the meeting. So I'm losing a lot by not being in front of people. That is what we chose to do. We are elected officials. Like, they should be able to come to us. We're able to sit there, see all the plans. I just feel this is my own feeling. I like to be in front of people. I like to be able to interact. And I feel that is a part we're missing.
Chairman.
Yeah, go ahead, Joe.
I guess I can see your point. The positivity rate has gone up. So I'm going to move to table this discussion.
Well, I mean,
I'm sorry, Joe, I missed what you said.
I said, I can see Jim's point. The positivity rate in this state has gone up. It's over 5% now. Okay, the hospitalizations have gone up. I can see Jim's point. So I want to move, I'm moving to table this
Well, we do have
discussion.
a new member coming in on the first meeting in January. Maybe it's important to have that voice heard as well.
Well, I'm moving to table it. Okay,
Okay, do we have a second?
Well, I'll second it.
Okay. Does anybody want to speak more, or we just call the roll? Meg, if you would please call the roll.
On the motion to table the discussion, Ms. Austin,
Against the motion.
Mr. Castagnoli,
yes,
Mr. Cater,
I'm with it.
Mr. Collegian,
Against the motion.
Ms. Kearney,
I'm gonna pass because I won't be on the board.
Ms.
Going
Kearney
forward.
abstains, Mr. Mortimer,
I'm with the motion.
and Chairman Quish.
I'm with the motion.
David, can you tally?
Yeah, the motion passes 4-2. If I got it correctly, yeah.
Well, then, David, let's make sure we put this on the agenda for the next meeting. Maybe we'll have some good news out of the CDC on the variant that's causing so much craziness, and we have a new member on the board that will be able to weigh in on their future as well. I mean, I think it's an important issue, and I respect the argument that we, I mean, it's a good argument that we should be in person. That's the way it's always been. But I'm nervous about it. Anyway, I do want to say that I just want to say thank you to Peg again for all your hard work and
Oh,
for being
thank
on the
you.
board. I kind of wish you ran again but thank you so much, and I wish you the best in everything.
Thank you. It's been it's been just great working with all of you. I really loved it.
And you're welcome at any meeting, anytime, and
Okay.
give your 2 cents because we value it.
Okay, thanks.
But whether it's in person or Zoom.
Yeah.
Either way. We have a staff report.
We have a double staff report tonight,
Yeah.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Griffith is going to, in his capacity as a floodplain administrator, give his update.
May I share my screen, Mr. Chairman, or Dave?
Sure.
Thank you. Okay. Good evening. I'm Joe Griffith. As you know, I'm here in the capacity of my role as floodplain administrator for the city of Milford. I'm going to give you a brief presentation tonight to report on the status of our hazard mitigation plan. The purpose of this plan is to outline the steps and strategies that Milford can take to mitigate against the loss of life and damage to property during natural disasters. While we have just ended hurricane season and the bulk of our storms happen in the fall, it is important to be aware that flooding can happen at any time. As we just saw this year, flooding can occur both along our rivers and coast from significant precipitation events, not just hurricanes. Public outreach is one of the priorities in the plan, and the Hazard Mitigation Committee has asked me to make a presentation to the Planning and Zoning meeting, as this board and its audience is focused on personal property and the development within the city. I would like to take the opportunity to point out a few resources available to residents for learning more about hazard mitigation. The plan itself can be found on the city's website by typing hazard mitigation in the search box on the home page, or the page for emergency management services, which I'm showing you here. On the emergency management services page are a number of links to other important sources of information for preparing for and recovering from a disaster. Milford residents are also encouraged to sign up for Milford Alerts. which I'm showing here on this site, the city's emergency notification system. Residents can sign up online, by phone, fax, or mail. On the city website, there's a sign-up page that can be found under important links or on the emergency services page. Information can also be found on the city, Milford, Connecticut City Hall and the Milford Fire Department, Milford, Connecticut social media pages when preparing for and during a storm event. During hurricane, excuse me, during Hurricane Preparedness Week in May and National Preparedness Month in September, the National Weather Service and its partners encourage individuals, families, and businesses and communities to know their risk, to take action, and be an example when it comes to dangerous weather. People are encouraged to make a storm preparedness plan of their own. More information can be found at the Emergency Services webpage. Should a storm or flood impact the city, it's important to remember the National Weather Service slogan, "Turn around, don't drown." Walking or driving through floodwaters is dangerous and should be avoided. And I'd like to thank Dave Sulkus for growing his beard and singing for us here.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Dave.
You're welcome.
Should a storm or flood impact the city, it's important to remember that the National Weather Service, excuse me, missed that one. Regarding floods, more than 25% of all the property owners in the city have land in the flood zone, which covers a third of the city. The city's Department of Permitting and Land Use has a number of resources for residents who would like to inquire about the city's flood zones and purchasing flood insurance. We can be reached at 203-783-3245. In closing, the hazard mitigation plan was updated through the South Central Region Council of Governments and accepted by the Board of Aldermen on August 7th, 2018. Rather than plan alone, we are now participating in a multi-jurisdictional plan with 13 other towns. Representatives from the Hazard Mitigation Committee participated in the planning and reviewing process for the regional plan and will continue to meet yearly to review implementation of the plan. The 2018 Hazard Mitigation Plan update can be found at the City of Milford website and the SCROG website under the Regional Hazard Mitigation Plan. The minutes for this presentation will include links for the above referenced sites to help you better prepare. Thank you for the opportunity for sharing this information.
Thank you, Joe. Does anyone have questions for Mr. Griffith? No, well done. Thank you for that work.
No problem.
David, do we have another item on this on the staff report?
Yes, much more exciting than hazard mitigation, and much more important when you get right down to what your jobs are all about. It's, as Nancy said, it's getting together. And to do that, you need a calendar. And it's that time of year where, yes, you need to approve your calendar so you can meet, whether in person or remotely, next year. So I sent to you the next year's calendar. There is only one date that was an issue, and it wasn't election day this year. We usually that messes with our schedule. Next year, October 4th, there wouldn't be a meeting because that evening is the beginning of Yom Kippur. But other than that, we've got a straight shot of meetings on Tuesdays. So if you approve this calendar, we can send it to the city clerk and make the statutes happy, because that's what it's all about.
I move
Well
to approve the
done.
calendar.
I second the motion. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, we have a calendar for next year without Peggy. Oh, no. Okay, so our business this day is done. Motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Good night,
Yeah,
everyone.
happy holidays, everybody. See you next year.
You too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Happy
happy
holidays.
holidays.
Happy
Happy
holidays.
holidays.
Take care, everyone.
See ya.